So welcome to the first webinar of the year. We're starting 2020 fresh. I hope you all really enjoyed your holidays, rested well, because 2020 is promising to be a very busy year, but loads of fun. So for the first webinar of the year, I'm going to show you a few new activities we've created with Tom and we've added to the website. Hello, hello. And I also wanted to show you, to take a little bit of time from this webinar to give you a kind of a quick demonstration how I quickly use our website to prepare for my lessons. Because I had a few teachers ask me that actually specifically. They heard that I sometimes use the website to prepare for lessons in like 15-20 minutes, and they were wondering how, if there was a if I could do a quick demonstration of that, for example, to show you how to use the search part as efficiently as possible. And then we're going to go over a few activities, a few new activities. All right, the plan is clear? So, what are we going to do with this? Let me start by showing you how I would prepare for a lesson using these, using our website. This is what I do every time we have lessons. I had 3 or 4 lessons yesterday, exactly the same. So for example, yesterday, one of the lessons I was preparing for a corporate client. We give lessons to this at the office of an IT company. They're bright students. If you've ever taught IT students, I think you'll understand me in saying that IT students are very inquisitive. They find all the little details, all the right questions, just to really to question every tiny little detail of what you're going over with them. They're really nice. They're usually more introverts, but some of them enjoy talking, but they're very often in their own world, so they can be very surprising. The topics they come up with in speaking activities sometimes is a bit shocking. So I was preparing this lesson for them, second conditionals. That was the next topic in the course program. We don't use textbooks with them, but if I were using a textbook, I would just look at the next lesson in the course program. And I always start with this. I always start with first target language. So I saw second conditional without even looking at the theme of the lesson or anything. Target language, the next target language is second conditional for them. So I immediately start by filtering second conditional. And you see that I don't already put all the details of level of difficulty, type of activity, things like that, because what I want to do is look at the largest amount of activities possible and then filter down as I go. So I start with second conditional. I just quickly browse through and I look at the titles and I see that I have some second conditional activities on their own. I have some first and second conditional activities that could prove useful in the future, actually. Second and third, mixed conditionals. So I just browse in general everything. Now, my students were B1, B2, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to fine-tune my search now to B1, B2 level. And there I have less activities. It's more filtered. It's more what I need. Okay, so I have my second conditional. I have my level. Well, now what do I want to do? These are adult students. I don't need to filter by age range per se. Usually works with adults, will work with teenagers. So I'll see that there. But now what I want to do is prepare the core of my lesson. And that's really going to be my presentation, P1, P2, P3 activities. I'll think about the warmer and the lead-in, about the production activity at the end. After that, I want to first have my core, the core part of my lesson fixed, and that will influence the themes and the jokes, the fun, the speaking activities, the warmers, things like that. First, the core part of my lesson. So I'm going to first look for my P1s for second conditional, B1, B2. There I have it. I have notes and basic practice for second conditional for B1, B2 level. Just a quick preview. There we have it. I have examples, I have the form, and I have fill in the blank activities, things like that. There are different examples. Okay, that's exactly what I need. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click it to download, or here download it all, and I'm going to print that, 1 copy per student. Okay. Next, so P1, we remember P1 is really the first stage right after the presentation with a few examples. We made the formula clear. Now P1s, I checked their understanding, I checked their accuracy when they have time to write it down. But now what I want to do is automate. I want to surprise my students and force them to automate this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to switch to P2 activities. Let's search for some P2 activities. There we have it. Now we have P2 activities. We have first and second conditional, second, third conditional. I don't want to mix yet. This was yesterday the first lesson with second conditionals. So I'm not going to touch those two yet. But I have here a card flip and a king of the mountain. Okay. So look, I opened the card flip. I think for those of you who have been on our website for a while, I'm sure you know the procedure for card flip. This is excellent. Just a quick repetition. Student flip 2 cards. The first card forms the prompt for the beginning of a conditional sentence. The second is the prompt for the ending. And so students are just going to make second conditional sentences as fast as they can. For example, card 1, he wakes up late. Card 2, dragons attack him. If he didn't wake up late, dragons wouldn't attack him. Things like that. Here are the sentence cards for example. I'm tired, I go shopping on weekends. If I weren't tired, I would go shopping on weekends. Ooh, I have to leave. I walk in the park on Sundays. If I didn't have to leave, I wouldn't walk in the park on Saturdays. The sentences are weird. It's not important. What we're doing here is just forcing our students to do it faster and faster and faster so that they build their reflexes. And just as I did right now, without thinking, I can make the two cards into a second conditional. The form is automatic. That's exactly what we want to achieve at our P2 level. It's not real life. This is going to take 5-10 minutes of my lesson. It's not real life. This is not what our students are going to use conditionals for, but it's a great way to just make it automatic. I like giving examples of me studying my Russian. It's the same thing. There are parts of my lessons with my Russian teacher that are just cards. For example, prepositions and nouns, and I have to put the nouns into the right case, depending on the preposition. Que, чему, the, где, things like that. It's important. It's very important so that it becomes automatic, reflexive, without thinking, and when you're speaking, it just flows. It doesn't flow without a bit of water once in a while, though. So I've got a P1 for my second conditional, which has examples, formulas, and fill in the blank activities. I found a P2, a card flip, that is going to help me automate. It's enough for 5-10 minutes. You see that there's another one, King of the Mountain, so I can actually choose. I can keep one for the next lesson to surprise them. I've got my P2, I'm happy. And then I look for P3. Now, a P3 activity is, again, it's a speaking activity. The key difference with a production activity is that a production activity is much longer. A production activity typically takes 20, 30, it can even take 40 minutes. A production activity is very engaging because it's real life. Students are put in a real life situation. They need to solve a problem. They're really involved, which also means that they get preparation time. And preparation time is when students prepare what they're going to say, which means that they have time to prepare to show off, prepare some specific sentences, things like that that they want to say, and that is going to, well, basically it doesn't show me their real fluency level. I want to surprise them. So before I give my students this production activity, for 5-10 minutes, I'm going to give them a P3 activity where they're shocked. They don't have time to prepare. They don't have time to think. They just need to react in English. And that's where I can really test their fluency, see their fluency. So I see here 2 P3s. If I lived there, if we didn't have it. If I lived there, I understand without even opening it, I have a quick idea of what it is. If I lived there, I kind of want to look at if we didn't have it, because remember I was preparing a lesson for IT guys, and this is the kind of thing that they really like. I already have an idea of the activity. Here's the procedure. Put the students into pairs or groups. Give each group a stack of item cards. Student A takes an item card and does not show his or her partner. A, describe what the world would be like if we didn't have this item using second conditional, and A's partner, B, has to guess what the item is on the card. So look at the items. This is actually loads of fun. The IT guys really got into it. So you take a card, for example, fridge. Well, if we didn't have this, we would need to keep our, it's wonderful. We live in Russia. So we would just keep our food and drinks on the balcony, of course. Depending on which winter you have. Here in St. Petersburg, it's not a real Russian winter, unfortunately, this year. It wouldn't help much. But in Siberia, I'm pretty sure if you didn't have fridges, you'd be fine during the winter. Now, if we didn't, I said the word fridges. You guess the idea. If we didn't have mirrors, how would life be different? If we didn't have noses, if we didn't have lips, how would life be different? We couldn't taste. So IT guys, they had loads of fun. Each card, they would say a few second conditionals. If we didn't have this, and the other student would guess what the item was. They had loads of fun. And again, you see here, the students are, it's a direct test of fluency. It's less a production activity because it's not so much real life. I don't spend a lot of time in my life personally imagining what would life be like without lips. But it's a great opportunity for students to focus on that second conditional. They're developing their fluency using that second conditional. You're listening, you're paying attention. You're testing their fluency, they're developing it. So I've got my P3 activity. So wait, look, in very little time, I quickly looked through. I have my second conditional, B1, B2. I have a P1, I have a P2, I have a P3. I have my core lesson, actually. If my lesson were only 45 minutes, I would limit it to that. I would just add a warmer, a lead-in to my lesson plan, and I'm ready. My lesson was more than one academic hour. It was 2 academic hours, so I have more time. With more time, I have 2 options. Either race through the program and do 2 45-minute lessons like this, where basically I have a lead-in and then P1, P2, P3, and I doubt I have a lot more time for anything else. So 2 instances of that, one for a grammar topic, for example, one for a vocabulary topic, or I'll use the second academic hour to focus on exam preparation, reading, something like that. Basically another skill. It could be soft skills as well. But with my students yesterday, um, these IT guys do want to spend the time to develop all their skills very well, very thoroughly. So the second academic hour, we were going to focus on more fluency, more second conditional, and so a production activity. Sorry. So let's take off the P3 filter and let's go for production and click on search again. And there I have it. I have a wonderful activity. Now, I can already see in the tags that there are more topics than just second conditional. Well, modes of obligation, they've already done. Second conditional. First conditional, well, that's actually very good because we've done first conditional with them as well. And I kind of do want to practice the first conditionals as well with them. So, hey, maybe this can be my second academic hour. Do you remember? I remember when browsing through the P2s, I noticed that there were P2s that had first and second conditional. I have a first and second conditional King of the Mountain here. So that's perfect. Oh, I even have two. Look, King of the Mountain is an activity like that where students are going to have to finish the sentence to go up the mountain. And to make it a P2, we're going to time them and make them do it faster and faster and faster. So this provides me with a good opportunity. After I do my first academic hour, P1, P2, P3, just on second conditional, I know these students are strong. I know they're good. So I'm going to bring them a King of the Mountain with first and second conditional to challenge them. It's going to be useful for them to combine what we've just learned and something that we'd learned before recently. It was, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, just before the holidays. So I'm going to do this King of the Mountain with first, second conditionals. Perfect. And coming back to my production activity that I found, I'm going to follow that King of the Mountain first, second conditional with Magic World Leaders Meeting. Let's have a look at it first, just to make sure that it's good for us. Now, I know it. I remember this very well. I know it, so I know it's very good. I used it. I actually used this yesterday for my IT guys, but also for a soft skills course last year. I love it. Magic World Leaders Meeting. Students are going to have the opportunity to practice first conditionals, second conditionals, modes of obligation. Why? Because they're going to be put in a diplomacy setting, basically. They're going to have to have a big world leaders meeting. They're going to each have their own goals for their own worlds, and they're going to have to compromise, talk and discuss, and try to find a way to live together. So look at the procedure. Put the students into groups, assign a role to each group. I'll show you the roles. Tell the students they will have to decide how to live together in the world. Hand out one role card to each group. Groups study the agendas and prepare a short speech to give to the class. After the speeches, they answer questions from the other representatives, and the groups work together to negotiate terms for the rules of the world. So here are the roles, for example. There's so many cards, honestly. If you have, like me, a group of 7-8 students, you can keep these for later use because there are plenty of different world leaders. So you have the medieval king, for example. His agenda is to increase army size to 2,000 people, organize importing of antibiotics against the plague because medieval king, get help with organizing sanitary service, organizing importing cheap, nourishing foods. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments as well. Perfect. Exactly, perfect, I agree. Oh, I'm glad you remember the Candy Queen. Yes, there's the Sea King, etc. So you remember these? There are lots of them. The Troll King, Queen, the Vampire King. You remember the Candy Queen. I'm glad you remember the Candy Queen. Where is our Candy Queen? Exotic Islands King. Don't never forget about the Exotic Islands King. I went the whole other way around. There we are. There's our wonderful pink Candy Queen. What does she want? Do you remember? Increase candy exports, increase sugar, milk, fruit, butter imports, and things like that. So when the Candy Queen and the medieval king are going to meet, they're going to have a lot of compromises to make. Our medieval king is a bit like he's in Game of Thrones mode. He wants to build his army and improve sanitation, things like that. Our Candy Queen, she's more into a fantasy world of happy, sweetie, wonderful life. Include sweets in school lunches worldwide. I think the medieval king might agree, but other leaders might not agree. So there you have it. I now have my lesson plan for second conditional B1, B2. I have a presentation P1, P2, P3. Then I have for a second academic hour, I have a P2 mixing first and second conditional. And I think you can see this Magic World Leaders meeting is easily 30, 40 minutes long, depending on how many students you have and depending how far you go in the negotiations and the compromise. I did it with my IT students. Honestly, this is going to take more than just one lesson because they took it very seriously to prepare their opening speeches. They really thought that they're at the United Nations but Magic were United Nations. They gave wonderful first speeches, answered questions. They had a real question and answer session. They really got into it because, just for you to know, they are interested in preparing for public speaking as well. So that played a big role. So they did their questions, answers, and for homework now, the groups are preparing based on the questions and answers. They're preparing their strategy, so they're actually going to have their negotiations next lesson. So this is very long. So I have this 5, P1, P2, P3 for second conditional, and then P2 for first, second conditional, and production, first, second, and modals of obligation. What am I left with? I'm just left with actually a warmer and a lead-in to second conditional. As I said at the beginning, I leave that till the end because, because everything that I've prepared now gives me a much more focused preparation for the lead-in and the warmer. So for my lead-in right now, it really depends on whether I'm using a textbook or not with these students. If I am, for my lead-in, I probably have a reading, a listening, maybe even a video activity that's provided in the textbook. I'm going to use that for my lead-in, probably. If I'm not using a textbook, with these IT guys, I'm not using a textbook, I am actually going to use a lead-in that leads to the final production activity to kind of have a whole cycle in my lesson. So the lead-in that I gave, the lead-in that I gave to my IT students yesterday, we started actually talking about diplomacy. Now, again, I agree, we specifically developed this activity, Magic World Leaders Meeting, to avoid all real politics in our lessons, especially at the moment with problems. Well, let's not get into it. As usual, there are worldwide political problems at the moment. We do not want our students to get into it. Well, we might if we have a very specific lessons for that, but in general, I don't want it. It's a waste of time. If they want to debate that, they can do it before or after the lesson, basically. We don't want to distract them with that. That's why it's Magic World Leaders. Same thing for my lead-in. In the diplomacy section, I didn't lead in with diplomacy relating to politics, actually. My IT guys are in a big, let's not call it a large company actually just yet. It's a booming company. It's a developing company, but nicely developing. So I actually started about diplomacy in the workplace. Because that's something that IT guys do notice that they're not especially good at. So we talked about how they behave when the owner's in the office, when the director's in the office, any conflicts they remember recently, things like that. Just to, yes, talk about diplomacy in the office and lead at the end to diplomacy with the magic world leaders. That gives me my lead in. All right, I'll prepare 1 or 2 stories and a little discussion. We should last 5 minutes on that. And finally, I'm just left with a warmer at the very beginning of my lesson. A warmer activity, I highly recommend. P3s are great warmers. You know, those little convince activities, shock, things like that. That's a very easy and simple way to warm our students up if they've done them before. If you're going to surprise them with, if they've never done convince and you introduce convince as a warmer, you're not warming them up, you're actually scaring them. It's like, oh, a new activity. Warmers should always be activities that they know. So convince, shock, any kind of P3 can be a good warmer activity. Another good warmer activity can be a P2, actually, revision of the previous target language. So in my case, I actually thought of giving them as a warmer an activity that was a P2 for first conditional, because as you notice at the end of my lesson, we're going to do a production that combines first and second conditional. So at first I hesitated. I thought of starting with a first conditional P2. I refrained because it's the first lesson after the holidays. I didn't think it would be a very effective way to to come back to English after the holidays. I would have done it if we'd had another lesson 2 or 3 days prior to that. What I did here, and this is the last thing I want to show you in terms of lesson preparation. If I'm not happy with a P3 or a P2 for my warmers, for my students, I always, by default, go back to a pronunciation introduction. So I click on pronunciation and you can see there are plenty of tongue twisters, short, it's not called poems, but they're short chants that we developed with Tom. So I want to filter them again, B1, B2 level. And there I have it. There are different takes on the activities, laughing at English, funny voices, things like that. But it was first lesson after the holidays, so I just simply took, you see they're numbered, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, etc. I honestly, right now, I don't remember which number we were on, but let's say we were on 10, I would have taken pronunciation exercise 11. So I print 1 copy per student, and we'll do exercise 1 a few times. So this one, exercise 1, we're focusing on sounds p, 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 z, 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 and question form. So I'll make my students repeat after me, and they love it. It's loads of fun. There's always some kind of joke in them. So perfect, perfect. Come on, repeat after me. Perfect, perfect. Perfect paper clips, perfect paper clips, perfect paper clips, picks perfect paper clips, picks perfect paper clips, picks perfect paper clips. You feeling, if you're doing it with me right now, you should feel your jaw starting to, well, actually, no, it's probably just because of my webinar. Am I drinking enough water? Okay, let's get back to it. It's like a gym, it's like a gym. Pamela picks, Pamela picks, Pamela picks perfect, Pamela picks perfect, picks perfect paper clips, picks perfect paper clips, Pamela picks perfect paper clips, Pamela picks perfect paper clips, Pamela picks perfect paper clips. That last one wasn't good. Pamela picks perfect paper clips. There we go. And you make the students repeat each of these phrases 3 times, quickly and clearly. It has to be quick, it has to be clear, it has to be quick, it has to be clear. It's basically like a gym for the jaw, and it's not just a gym for the jaw. Tongue twisters, they've been proven to actually be very good for listening skills as well, because when the jaw is practicing pronouncing these sounds, the ear is getting used to them. Zip zipper, zip zipper, zip zipper, zip zipper, zip zippers. Zakari zips zippers, Zakari zips zippers, Zakari zips zippers. And finally, the question. Now, what students really like about these questions in these pronunciation exercises is to play with the different levels of formality. What do you think you're doing? 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 And as you do it faster and faster and faster, you give more and more tips to your students how to simplify that. What do you typically becomes what do you, do you, at one point it's just going j. What you think you're doing? What you think you're doing? That's very informal. But again, it's a good thing. It's good for our students to know, because watching YouTube, well, in real life, they're going to encounter people just, what you think you're doing? You need to be able to answer. I've prepared for my lesson. A bit longer than the 15-20 minutes that I promised, but it's also because I'm explaining the process. I'm going over the process. But look, in 30 minutes, what we just prepared is a 2 academic hour lesson for my IT students on second conditional. We've got a warmer. We're going to start 5 minutes with a pronunciation exercise, a few tongue twisters. We're going to follow that with a short discussion on diplomacy in the workplace, diplomacy in their company. This diplomacy, I'm going to use this diplomacy talk to introduce a few second conditional topic examples. Then I'm going to follow that up with our P1 handout that we found. Remember, it has examples, it has formulas, explanations, and it has a few fill-in-the-blank exercises, just for my students to just do a bit of second conditional on their own, at their own speed. From what I remember, there are 2 fill-in-the-blanks, so I'm going to use 1 in class, 1 for homework, okay? Then we had found a card flip, P2. So we have a warmer, lead-in, P1, P2, a card flip for second conditional. This is going to take 5-10 minutes. Our student's going to go over the cards once, then they're going to time themselves, then they're going to challenge themselves to do it faster. We're building the reflexes. We've got 5-10 minutes of that. Warmer, lead in, P1, P2, P3, the activity, if we didn't have this. So they're going to 5-10 minutes with cards. They're going to test and develop their fluency. If we didn't have glasses, well, we would drink water out of our hands. I don't know. So we have our P3, that's our first academic hour. And then our second academic hour, we decided we're going to first do a P2, a King of the Mountain that combines first and second conditional. And then we're going to follow that with a very good speaking activity, but a very long one called Magic World Leaders, where our students are going to first split up into little teams. I only have 7-8 students, so they were pairs. In little teams, they each have a little world. They make their speech, answer, have a question and answer session, and then we can go into the negotiations. For me, that meant another lesson. Do you have any questions on this? Do you see what I mean? How this lesson preparation approach really helps to streamline, because I'm a teacher too. I totally understand you. Our time is precious. We also deserve a life. We love our students. We're devoted to our students. Don't change that. That's absolutely wonderful. You don't want to change that so that, you know, after years and years of teaching, you become a bit sorrow and a bit more negative. No, we don't want that. To avoid that, we need to take good care of ourselves as well. We need to have a life, and that's why our lesson preparation needs to be more efficient. We don't want to take our time away from our students. We need to take time away from our lesson. Not take time away, but make it more efficient. So really start that way, okay? First, start with a target language. That's what we did. We started with a target language, we searched. Then we filtered down to levels of difficulty. Now, If for your level there's not enough, play with the level of difficulty. If B1, B2, I didn't find enough P2s or P3s, I might want to look at A2, B1. There are activities here too for second conditional. Or the opposite, if my students are pretty strong or if they've done this before, I might want to look at B2 plus. But so first, target language, then filter by level, and then start playing with the type of activities, and you'll find everything you'll need. You'll first prepare your core P1, P2, P3 lesson, then build your warmer lead in and your production around that. Any questions on that, on the whole lesson preparation part of the webinar today? Everything clear? Perfect. I'm glad to see these webinars are useful, Katrin. I mean, immediately in the middle of the webinar, you have time to text the teachers and let them know of these activities. Brilliant. I did also want to show you a couple of new activities that we've developed. It's back after the winter holidays, of course, but you can guess that Tom and I weren't. Of course, at one point during the holidays, we worked. So there are a few new activities and things like that, and a lot more are coming. A lot more activities are coming. Actually, before I forget, we also want to improve the website this year and our trainings. We're going to start doing some teacher trainings online, things like that, because you know that I travel, but unfortunately I can't travel everywhere. So I'm looking right now at the format using probably Zoom actually to have some TPDs throughout the year that will be online. So getting back to the activities, I wanted to show you a few new things that are on the website. So let's start with an activity, high level. We're going to go to C1. And this is a topic, I want to show you this because this is a topic that I think you know, Tom and I both care really very much about. So this present perfect explains the situation now is a whole topic. Now, there are not only 2 activities here, okay? There are a lot more. It's just that I filtered to C1 level. If I take out the C1 level, only 4 activities? I'm surprised. Okay, I'll have a look at that because we have way more activities on present perfect explains. So anyways, let's go back to C1. I'll take a note of that. Sorry. Because present perfect explains the situation now is, personally, I think one of the greatest grammar explanations we ever came up with Tom. This is, I think you'll all agree that present perfect is one of those topics. I've even noticed textbooks and teachers giving up on trying to explain present perfect. Some people just claim that there's no explanation for the present perfect. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. Of course, if you look at textbooks, usually they don't really provide an explanation of present perfect. They provide a description. They don't give a definition of what is present perfect. They describe all the different cases you can use. Present perfect with for and since, present perfect with already and yet. Actually, present perfect, the definition, the explanation of present perfect, that works in every single case of present perfect. What we still haven't found a counterexample. If you find one, please let us know. It's consistent. It always works. A present perfect sentence explains now. If teachers use that logic, that explains for and since, already and yet, every single case of present perfect. I've lost my keys. Please help me find them. If you say, I lost my keys, that's a story. That's different. We know that in real life, natives will often confuse the two. But Correct English is really that. The difference is I lost my keys. It might have happened 10 years ago. I'm telling you a story. We're in the past. If I say I've lost my keys, I don't need to tell you, please help me find them. You're supposed to understand that from my first sentence. I haven't eaten today. You understand I'm hungry. Loads of, really, all examples work. So present perfect explains the situation now. There's here a whole video and everything. I highly recommend you watch it. But I wanted to show you this lovely activity for C1 level students. Really, here we're with graduates and people preparing for FCE, things like that. It's good fun. Student A takes 2-3 bad employee cards. Student B takes 2-3 good employee cards. A begins the conversation against the employee, citing reasons for why B should not work with the company. B defends the employee based on the information on his or her cards. In the end, the students must agree which of the following options to take: keep the employee, promote the employee, fire the employee. It's loads of fun. So you really have student A and student B debating another employee. I highly recommend, for this to be efficient, I highly recommend naming the third employee so that they get more into it, so that basically they have a fictional character in their mind. They don't think about other real colleagues. If you're teaching at a corporate client like with me yesterday, this activity, I wouldn't want them to think of each other. So we tend to use this name, Gary. I just tell my students it's Gary. So you have the bad employee cards and the good employee cards. This employee broke the drink machine. This employee fell asleep at a meeting last Friday. This employee has relationship problems with several coworkers, blah, blah, blah. It's really good fun. You have lots of cards, and this really gives students A and B the opportunity to, they're discussing this employee's future by discussing the present consequences of past actions. So most of this is going to be in present perfect. It's a great production activity for present perfect. There you have it. C1, present perfect explains. Now I took a note to look at, because really we have a gold mine of activities for present perfect explains now, honestly. We'll work on adding those. Questions and answers? Any questions on this activity?
Yeah. Do you have production only for C1? Because we start teaching perfect on B1.
Yes. So that's why I need to go look over my activity.
Yeah. I didn't see the filter. Sorry. Yeah.
So for some reason, I see only 4 here on the website. I took an immediate note of that. Really, we have a goldmine of activities for present perfect explains the situation now. We haven't uploaded them yet, apparently, because it was not in the priorities of, remember last year, I kept asking you every webinar your priorities. It wasn't the priorities, so apparently we haven't been uploading much recently. So I took a note of that. We're going to start uploading present perfect for lower levels as well, Liana. B1, B2. I agree. You start teaching present perfect at B1 level, of course. Sometimes at even A2, I've found. So we have activities for those. They will be less complicated, of course. This employee's future activity at C1 level, the vocabulary is very specifically adapted.
Yeah, there are, because when we start teaching on A2, maybe it's not for situations now. It's maybe have you ever or something like that. Something very, very common, very,
yes,
not that specific. So maybe if you clean the filter of for situations now, it's going to be something else. I'm sorry, I just haven't got the database now in front of me. Only your screen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would add that, yes, it's also, So it depends if you're teaching with a textbook or not. Yes, if it's with a textbook, they might tell you to only introduce have you ever, things like that. I would say this activity as well is for C1 level, because look, there's some example. This employee has had his or her name online for the past 8 months. Constructions like that, yes, at A2, B1 level, it might be a bit difficult. All right, I've taken a note. I'll definitely take a look at why we don't have more activities. We'll load more, don't worry. We love present perfect explains now. Second activity I wanted to show you. Indirect questions. What was it? What level? B2 plus? This is new. You have a lot of activities here for indirect questions. There we go. So this is brand new. Celebrities personal assistant for indirect questions. This is a lot of fun. B2 plus. Here's the context. Student A is looking for a job as a personal assistant. Student B works for a celebrity who needs a personal assistant. I highly recommend it. I've done this with teenagers as well. Teenagers really get into it. It's loads of fun. It's kind of more in the world of teenagers to focus on celebrities, but a lot of adults do too as well. We like thinking of their lives. Here's the procedure. So here's the context. Student A is looking for a job as a personal assistant. Student B works for a celebrity who needs a personal assistant. If you're in need of some kind of introduction or something like that, there's something that is good fun. I remember, I don't remember how to find it exactly, but the search on YouTube shouldn't be too difficult. So what you want to do is search on YouTube for, I forget the name of the actor that plays Ross Geller in Friends, him, personal assistant, prank, or something like that. Because I remember about 10, 15 years ago, he participated in this TV show that organized pranks with celebrities. And there's a TV show where, there's an episode where David Schwimmer, that's it, that's his name. David Schwimmer is in a prank. He's pretending to be a horrible celebrity. And the person who doesn't know is the person who is applying to be their personal assistant. Very funny. That can be a good introduction, a good lead-in to the activity if you need one. If not, another way is simply to ask your students, elicit from the students answers to the following questions. It's like on personal assistants. What does a personal assistant do? What sort of hours do they work? Is it a difficult job? Why or why not? What is a good personal assistant? On celebrities, how would you describe rich and famous people? Do you think they're good bosses? Little questions like that to kind of get them thinking in the right direction. I remember there's also, I believe there's a Macmillan textbook for teenagers on writers and contracts. That can also be a good lead-in. There are quite a lot of celebrities, bands, things like that are famous for being very difficult on tours, and they have specific writers in their contracts. These are things that people who invite them need to guarantee. If I remember right, Elton John needs specific flowers and a specific number of flowers in his room. There's a very funny story of a rock band who always asks for a huge bowl of M&Ms and for the brown M&Ms to be taken out. And that's their trick to make sure that contracts are well read through. So basically when they arrive at the venue, the first thing they do is they look at the bowl of M&Ms, and if they find brown M&Ms in the bowl, they know that they can expect things not to go as smoothly as hoped because the contract wasn't thoroughly followed. So you lead in with these questions or maybe these videos, and then you put the students into pairs or small groups. Give each group a celebrity profile. For their celebrity profiles, students come up with questions that they can ask during an interview. When you check the questions that the students have, remind them of the option to use indirect questions, okay? That's the goal of our activity. You assign students roles as interviewer and interviewee, and students do the interviews. Students switch so that they interview for other positions as well. And in the end, the groups get back together and decide which of their classmates will be the best for the job. Oh, as an extension, you can also negotiate salaries. So look, for example, group 1, you're the manager. Sorry, I clicked. Let's get back to group 1 and group 2. There are more and more. Group 1, you're the manager for a band, the Purple Clouds. They're looking for a personal assistant to help them on their tours. Here's what is important to the band. They only, I remember reading about this. So this is inspired from our reading. Yes, they only eat green M&Ms and 2 kilos, 4.4 pounds of them before every concert. The singer Paul requires a foot massage after every concert. 3 rabbits travel with the band, and they should be walked every day. The Purple Clouds drink 3 liters of a certain brand of energy drink before every show. You're responsible for the happiness and success of this band. You need to find the best personal assistant. Make questions for possible candidates. So you see, each group is going to focus on one celebrity, interview other students, and in the end, get back together and pick one. Jenny Lawless, you're the manager for a pop singer, Jenny Lawless. She's looking for a personal assistant. The only music that anyone can listen to around Jenny is Jenny's own music. Jenny only wears white clothes. They have to be clean. Jenny eats 3 hamburgers at lunch. Jenny needs a new pair of shoes for every single concert. Group 3, group 4, etc., etc. I really love this activity for indirect questions. Again, this is again a production activity. These are long activities. Like the previous one, employees future, that was a production activity. These are long activities, long speaking activities. Any questions on the indirect questions activity, celebrity's personal assistant? Is the lighting good? I have the impression I'm very dark. I'm absolutely hopeless at these kind of things. Now it's shining, right? There we go. I have 2 more quick activities I was planning on showing you. It's the start of the year. Now, we've gone over these. Oh, because where did I put telling the time? There we are. Of course, functional language. My bad. Sometimes you know an activity, you know where, you know an activity, you just don't know where it is. So, coming back to low level. This is A2. We were asked about really low level and simple topics because there weren't enough on the website. So one request we had was for just simply telling time. The context is very simple here. Students are in a movie theater, cinema. They must decide what they want to see and then order tickets at the ticket counter. Of course, you can always just go online and print the real program of a cinema. We live in the age of the internet. You can quickly go and find a cinema in London and print their program. They don't all do it in a very teacher-friendly format, unfortunately. So if you can't find a program that's easily downloadable in English, don't download the program of your local cinema. It's going to be in in your own language, that's kind of a shame. It should all be in English if you're going to use it. If you can't find one in English that is simple and a clear, simple teacher format printing or cutting, we provide you with a fictional one. So the procedure is you put the students into small groups of pairs. First, all the students are friends. Each pair group needs a now showing handout. So this is your movie time. All right, this is the cinema. Lion Man 12's Sadness. It's an action movie. Mars Wars, the final chapter, sci-fi. Dead Before Dawn, it's a horror movie. Frog and Friends, that's a good movie for the family. Wait. Where are we? There we are. So here, now playing at Resource Cinema. Da-da-da. So each pair group needs a now showing handout. They must decide what movie they want to see. So they're going to discuss that. They can discuss the genre or things like that. Again, it's A2 level. Don't expect too much. But at A2 level, you've probably done this. Come together as a class, have the students say what movie they want to see and when they want to see it. Then assign the role of movie theater employee to one of the students in each group. Students approach the movie theater employee and purchase tickets for the movie at a certain time. That's where, ta-da, there you have it. Lion Man 12 Sadness, these are the screenings, Mars Wars, etc. Any questions on this activity? It's A2 level. It's not A1. It's not the first time students have seen numbers and time. I use this activity with A2 level students for those students who have not mastered it yet, are still thinking, hesitating on the quarter past, the quarter to, things like that. Perfect. All right. Okay, it is 2:30, but there's one more activity I did want to show you. We are now going to go to a soft skill or an advanced communication skill. Softening opinions. Now, we're going to gradually add more and more of this functional language, advanced communication skills, or let's call them soft skills as well, to the website, because these are a great way to add a component to your lessons that students really lack. It's the 21st century is really all about communication. As technology develops more and more, as everything becomes more and more automatic, more and more practical, the future is really in communication in around the world. To me, I see in everyday life, it's not just about the world. In everyday life, most conflicts I see are really stem from miscommunication, misunderstandings, things like that. We need to help our students with that. This is key. The students that are the best at communication will be the most successful ones in the future, for sure. So this is something very important to my students. I find softening opinions. We added it specifically because, again, yesterday I was teaching these corporate clients, these IT guys. There's something that I both love and hate about them. Not hate in a serious way, but they really frustrate me. Very often IT guys are in their own world and they have trouble putting themselves in the shoes of others. So many times that I have conversations about conflicts and misunderstandings that they had at conferences, during small talk, things like that, just because they weren't softening their opinions. They were just bluntly saying their opinions And sometimes things on religion, on politics, things like that, I'm like, you can't tell people that way, because, well, you know what? Everybody's opinions matters to them. So you need to be able to soften your opinion. So this is a great lesson to do, and it's very important for students to be able to do. It's good fun. Student A takes the problem card, student B rolls the die, A asks for advice based on the problem card. And now here you can focus only on softening opinions, or if you want to prove a point to your students, if you really want to show them that it's just not acceptable, you need to put yourself in the shoes of others, you can do this. Put on the board a kind and cruel map. Let's say here it's, for example, if you have a die in your class, you can simply tell them, roll the die before each role play. 1, 2, 3, be kind. 4, 5, 6, be cruel. So B gives advice that is either kind or cruel, depending on the roll of the die. A responds, showing A should make it clear to B their reaction to their advice. My feet hurt every day. My doctor says I should get more sleep. Teachers, I think this card number 2 is true about most of you. My doctor says I should get more sleep. Yes, we do need more sleep. We do need to learn to know when to stop. I'm thinking about starting to swim. I always fall asleep when I start to read. My dentist started crying while she was working on my teeth. My new phone isn't working. I'm having trouble finding a new job. My husband, wife, roommate doesn't want to get another cat. Get another cat. There are already 5, for example. I can't find my car. So the friend is going to react kindly or cruelly. It's great fun, and it's a good opportunity for students to really play on different levels of formality and familiarity. Students need this. Depending on the student, some students are very sensitive, sensitive to other people, and are able to do this more naturally. If you have students like mine that are not, I highly recommend this, softening opinions. Do you have any questions on that, on this activity, softening opinions? We're going to as well upload more. Let's say November, December, we concentrated a lot on low-level activities, new activities for kids, things like that. But really, at English Connection at our school, we teach everyone. We've developed a lot of new soft skills activities that we just need to go through the design with our designer to make sure that everything is well copyrighted and everything is clear, everything is flexible for you to use, and we'll start uploading them. Softening opinions. Any questions on that last activity? Oh, in the chat, I see. Perfect. Perfect. I'm really happy it's clear. And I'm kind of happy and proud of our first webinar of 2020, actually. A few questions. This first half an hour of the webinar, remember, where I really went through me planning a lesson using activities, and you heard not just the website. I'm going over the whole procedure of me preparing for a lesson, going through what I find, really my logic, step by step, what I find, where I look for things. Was it useful? Would you like more little things like that during our webinars, where basically it's a quick free training? I give you tips and things like that or I actually give you examples of lessons I prepared recently for you to be able to kind of follow this same structure and try to use the search and the website more and more flexibly. and efficiently. All right. So I'm getting mixed feelings. I'm getting, yes, it was useful, but it caused plenty of questions. Did I not ask if you had any questions at the end? I was sure I did. Maybe it was the first webinar to 2020. I was a bit in a rush and everything.
No, I think it's just because it was the first webinar and the holidays will be over soon. So lesson planning always causes a lot of questions.
You're still on holiday?
Yes, I am. No, I work, but at school I'm still on holidays. Yes.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yes, good for me, but not good for students. On 30th or 13th of January, they will just forget everything.
Yeah, I see what you mean. 2 weeks is a bit of a long, it's a long
Too
break.
long. Yeah.
Oh wait, so Liana is writing. So if I start asking, we'll end the webinar in spring. Hopefully. Okay, I can't do that, unfortunately, Liana, but I'm sure it wouldn't take that long. Let's give one question. Choose the best question. I do confess I don't have time to stay here till spring, but if it arose questions, I want to answer them. So let's do at least one question right now. Oh, you want to send it by email? Feel free. You can always send me questions by email. Now, we've just returned from holiday, and I confess there are 2-3 emails and 2-3 messages on the website that I still need to answer. That's my bad. I'll get to it this weekend. Your planning is very far from my real life work because you're using a textbook. You see, Liana, I agree. Sending me the questions by email. What I love about email is that you can always reread it. It's easy to find and you can easily find the answers back. I really like email, the writing side of it, because it's easy to find. On the other hand, you might have very good questions that other teachers want answers to, but are not asking me. So if I answered those questions right now in the webinar, it might be more useful to everyone. All right, well, I'll expect the questions by email. I understand your comment that my planning is very far from your real life work. I imagine it's either because you have a textbook imposed or you're working in a language center that has very strict lesson planning and observations. So you have a specific structure to follow. No? Okay, how about I plan what I did today, this first part of lesson planning. I use the example of adults, IT guys, things like that. Let me plan for the next one then, doing the same, but for students, for completely different students. So let's go. And yes, you're right, your students have different needs, of course. Yes, I wouldn't claim to say that one approach works. That's why there are so many different methodologies, and depending on the students and their goals, I will change methodologies. I will change different ways of introducing. I can go classic PPP. I can go full on task-based approach as well, depending on the students, depending on the context. So I will do a little 20-minute lesson planning for what? Let's say kids.
It's really it's very difficult to formulate it now. Yeah, Catherine, I absolutely agree with you. I think email is better because just can't put it into words now.
Okay, don't worry.
But anyway, the information about lesson planning and the logic, of course, it's useful, and it's always useful because sometimes you just some people are being stuck in the way they do it, and they don't look for any other things, how other people do it. So yeah, of course, it was useful anyway.
Okay, well, look. For now, I'll expect your email. For now, I'll think about a completely different kind of lesson plan. I already know your context a little bit, so I'll plan for kids, right? Laura.
Well, for kids, yes. And you know, I have, for example, some adults who just for them the English lessons is like, you know, like social dancing, like people who go to salsa dance, those things, they don't work with them. They say that kind of thing, for example.
So they have very specific needs. You're saying, so these are adults who are not interested in all.
And with some adults, it's very difficult to, but I think they don't have business needs. They're just having a good time on our lessons.
Oh, of course. We always find a way, even with the professional part, to have a very good time. As you saw, for example,
yeah, of course. But I've got, for example, there are 2 or 3 young girls who are just in their early 20s, and they it's not their cup of tea to even to play all these business situations. I'm not saying that they're bad. They're awesome, and I use them a lot and adapt and try to use with teenagers and things like that.
But I agree. But all right, young adults, yes, okay. And I still guess going over a lesson plan for kids, for example, would be an interesting webinar as well. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just connected with mixability, for example, because all the mixability devices on the internet.
Liana, you're breaking up.
First question is mixed. There are.
Is it just me or? Hello? I'm sorry. I don't know if it's my connection or your connection. Katrin is writing as well that she can't hear you, unfortunately. All right, then, Liana, I'm sorry. Are you on Wi-Fi? Connection is bad. Then look, Liana, let's agree on that. definitely send it to me by email, more details, but I see what you mean. Yes, we do have a lot of professional context activities on the website. I totally see what you mean. I'm going to think, I like the fact that we agree that the first part of today's webinar in this lesson planning context was...
I'm sorry, can you just jump in for comments?
Yes?
Sorry, I didn't hear anything before yes.
Okay.
I'll better just send it because it seems that that connection is not very fine.
Well,
Can you hear me now?
As usual with connection, when you don't want to say something, the connection is fine. We just heard you fine right now. But when you start giving a detailed answer, that's when you start breaking up.
Okay, it's Murphy's Law working.
All right, then do send me that all in written form. Anyways, it will be way better because I have a track and I can follow that. I can send it to Tom. We can discuss it and find new solutions. I'm glad that you like the format of the beginning of today's webinar, and I'll think about next webinar, just a similar format, but for something really completely different students, different needs, okay? No IT guys, no professional. All right? And you know, no need to apologize for interrupting. Honestly, it's very good. I encourage you to ask questions during the webinars. That's the whole point of the webinars. I'm very glad that you did ask questions. So no need to say sorry for interrupting. It was a very good thing that you interrupted. All right. Enough for today. I'll close today's webinar. As usual, I'll add it to YouTube probably on Monday for future viewing and things like that. I hope you enjoyed the first webinar of 2020, and we'll continue in this format sometime next week. All right, I can't say exactly when yet, but sometime next week. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you
Enjoy
for the
your
webinar.
weekend.
It was lovely.
And good luck on coming back to work on Monday.
Yay! Coming back.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.